7, 6.
Good evening. This is Mike Waters from U.S. Sailing. I'm here tonight with Mike Cook, Jonathan Bartlett, Jack Gerhardt, Corey Sertle, and Henry Brower. This is an initial kickoff for our Yacht Club Leadership Forum. And the purpose really for the call, the initial call tonight, was to pull together the leadership of some of our 900 yacht clubs around the country, and to talk about some of the programs that we're doing at U.S. Sailing, and to have a forum to discuss some of the challenging times that we're all experiencing here. Our clubs range from the largest ones that have full service going on all of the time, all the way down to a club that's going to be running for 6 or 8 weeks during the summer. So we wanted to pull everybody together here and to show that, you know, U.S. Sailing's support of the yacht club community is really going to be focused here on sailing. That's youth, adult, competitive, casual sailing, and, you know, the structures and, you know, helping individuals that, you know, support the sport. It's an opportunity tonight for us to hear from the leadership of U.S. Sailing, hear to the leadership of some clubs, hear from you folks live on YouTube. You're welcome to put in questions, and I thank you all for you know, chiming in with your names and everything like that. It's great to see so many people out here. We're up to 390 right now that are participating, and it's great. Thank you. So as you have questions tonight, feel free to put those into the chat. I will do my best to get back to those. And right now, I'd like to turn this over to Corey Sertle for some opening remarks. Madam President.
Thank you, Mike, and welcome to everybody. It's great to see some people I know and some people I have yet to meet, and to see how many clubs have turned out to get together and be with us this afternoon. On behalf of the board of directors, I'm really proud of the organization that U.S. Sailing is, and a lot of our products, and specifically what we can bring to yacht clubs and support yacht clubs. U.S. Sailing's roots are with yacht clubs. And I personally am from Rochester, New York, and am a proud member of Rochester Yacht Club, as well as the yacht club that I grew up in Jamestown, Rhode Island, where I still spend summers, Connecticut Yacht Club. I'm also a member of New York Yacht Club and do some sailing out of there. So I have a pretty big yacht club base, and are really familiar with sailing all kinds of boats, such as Lightnings, J24s, J22s, and bigger boats, and have experienced yacht clubs of all sizes. And at one of our board meetings, as we were dealing with all of the challenges that we're facing in our sport right now, and the whole country's facing, I had a chance to you know, have a conversation with 2 of our board members, Henry Brower, who's involved on the board of the Eastern Yacht Club in Marblehead, and our CEO, Jack Gerhardt, who just finished being Commodore of the Beverly Yacht Club in Marion, Massachusetts, and said, what we really need to do is reach out to our clubs at a time like this and show them what we're doing to pivot and support our clubs and our organizations with how we can deliver sailing, our educational products, and our training products, as well as sharing the resources that we have. And also, one of the best things I think that we do at U.S. Sailing is bringing our clubs together from all over the United States to share ideas, how we're tackling challenges, problems, coming up with solutions, because we always know that somebody in one part of the country, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're all facing similar things, and we need solutions on how to move forward. So again, thank you everyone for coming. This is just the start of something we hope we can build on and really share some great information moving forward. And I want to thank my fellow board members for supporting this, particularly Henry, and who you'll hear from in a little bit, as well as I'll now turn it over to our CEO, Jack Gearhart, to take us through some of the interesting programs that we've been focusing on in the last few weeks.
Great. Thank you, Corey. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your day. I know we're all dealing with a lot of challenges right now, and it's great to see so many people chiming in and spending a little bit of time with us. What we want to do is just lay a little bit of groundwork. I don't want to take too long talking about what we're doing, but give folks an idea of how we're looking at, how we can support you out at on the waterfront, and then we'll turn it over to Henry, Mike, and Jonathan to, talk through what the challenges and the things that they're dealing with are at the moment. And then, as Mike said, certainly look forward to your questions. We're not going to have all the answers, but what we want to do is take away from this some of the pressing issues that you have, and start to help you find, connect and find solutions. So one of the things that for the last, really 4 weeks here at US Sailing that we've been working on is the springtime is a busy time of preparation, I think, for all of us in the sailing community. And it's a time when we're engaging with our volunteers around, preparing for racing, getting race management skills up and running. It's a time when we're outlining our junior programs and getting instructors in place and getting curriculums developed and getting all that prep, the schedules done. And then, for our individual sailors, there's a lot of preparation that goes into, getting ready for the big races, safety issues and things like that. And so much of what we do and, the foundation of our sport is live in person, hand to hand. And so we've had to take a big shift in how we are supporting you all and supporting the sport. And so there's sort of 3 big areas that we've worked on recently in that realm. One is our level 1 instructor course, which is really the foundation of sailing education in the country. And many of you, I think probably all of you on the call, have had some experience with this. That's traditionally been a 4-day in-person course, very sort of hands-on, engaging with an instructor, a small group of students. And we know that these instructors are critical to so many programs around the country. And what we've done is we've taken that course of 4 days and basically taken 2 of them and put them on into an online environment. And we're running that over a 10-day period. And what that will leave is that will give these instructor candidates some good foundation and background into instruction and teaching sailing, developing lesson plans, some of the critical skills that they'll need for that. And then we will roll out and finish it off with a 2-day in-person as soon as we can get back out on the water. And so what we're looking to do is really compress the time that we need once things open back up again, and be able to get a lot of these people prepared and educated to get out and teach some sailing this summer. So that's one of the core things. We've launched that. We've gone through a pilot, and now we had about 400 candidates enrolled. They were in some, the classes that they had been postponed or canceled. So we're rolling them into the online piece, and we'll be opening that up for broader registration the first part of May. So we hope to be able to run a bunch of people through that. Next slide. The other thing that we did in lieu of some of these safety at sea classes that are seminars that are held in person, we did a sort of a rush completion of the full 15 modules of the safety at sea curriculum. So your members and sailors can get the full curriculum for safety at sea online now. There's still going to be a component of hands-on that's going to need to be finished to get the full international certification. But the Safety at Sea Committee, working with a lot of the race organizers have changed some of the credentialing and the certificate requirements to help organizers and help sailors get prepared for the races that hopefully will still happen later on in the summer. So that's online and available. You know, this is a lot of this work in these two areas has been based on staff and a lot of really supportive and engaged volunteers. So we really want to thank them in coming to support these activities. The final area that we've rolled out is our one-day race management seminar, and we've migrated that online. That's sort of the grassroots of race management, and it's a course that a lot of people take every year. It provides, you know, a good baseline of skill and knowledge for yacht clubs and your race committees to run races. It's always been an in-person seminar, and we have been able to move that online, and we'll start running that over the next couple weeks as well. And what's going to be great about this is it's not only going to help fill the gap that the canceled seminars have created, but it's going to open it up to a much broader audience. And I think probably a lot of you online this afternoon, you know, struggle with how to get your volunteers in touch with some of these seminars. So this is now, it's basically going to be on everybody's desktop and available to use. These are all these online courses, the level one and this one-day race management seminar are a mix of sort of preparation and student-driven stuff, as well as live online engagement with instructors and seminar leaders. So I think that'll be really helpful. The second area that we spent a lot of time on, and we hope that you know, your members and sailors across the country will take advantage of this, is this online portal, the Starboard Portal, which is a platform where we've been bringing, you know, sailing leaders from across the sport, all different areas, to come and talk about, you know, their careers, the things that they're working on, sharing knowledge. We have them going every day. You know, as you can see here, everything from Terry Hutchinson to some of our Olympic sailors. We've had some big boat handicap racing discussions on there, fitness, all walks of the sport are being featured in these presentations. And we hope you'll take the opportunity to share that with your members, give them something to get excited about, and stay connected to the sport while they're at home. And we also ask, if you have any thoughts on ideas on what you'd like to see on here, please send them in. There's an opportunity and a place to send suggestions. And we've gotten a lot of really good recommendations coming in from the audiences and viewers. So that's a little bit of what we're doing right now. As you can see, we're really trying to adapt to this new online environment and sort of shelter in place situation that we're in, and not lose time and the opportunity to deliver a lot of this important education while we're waiting, and tee up everybody as soon as we can, so they'll be prepared to ramp up once we can get back on the water. What's going to be coming up next is a host of things. Again, continuing to move some of our curriculum online. Skill Up is the youth application that we launched last year. It's a mobile-based app for your phone that interfaces with instructors, program directors, and students with live video, or with video and sort of lesson plans. That's the second version of that is coming online shortly. We're doing some of these other courses, branching into the judging and umpire space. One of the really cool things that's being worked on as well by our youth department and adult and the education group is sort of a digital learn to sail toolkit that's going to be made available to clubs and organizations. So tools and resources, content that you can all sort of deploy to your members. You can run through your programs, through your volunteers or your instructors, to again help get your member base, your community up to speed a little bit sooner. We're working on moving some of our symposiums online as well to take advantage of that and reduce the need for travel across the country as we get back online. So that's a little bit of what U.S. Sailing has been up to. It's been a quick shift for us. Again, it's been a teamwork on the part of our staff and volunteers that have really stepped up to help us. And probably several of you or many of you on the call have had some input on this, and we really appreciate that. And again, if there's, what we want to do here as we move into this next session is hear from you all on what you think would be helpful as you're, dealing with issues in your local areas. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Henry and move into the next section. You're on mute, Henry, I think.
I was being a good doobie and muting, so thank you.
Yeah, there we
Sorry
go.
about that. Good evening, everybody. It's exciting to have 390 some odd fellow club leaders on board tonight. And when Corey, Jack, and I first talked about this a couple weeks ago, I'm not sure we imagined that we would have such a large audience to kick this off. It's come together pretty quickly, and it's exciting that we're able to get all of you together and share common themes, ideas, concerns, and challenges that we're all facing. We've put together a couple of Commodores who lead different sorts of clubs. They'll introduce themselves in a minute or two. I'll first introduce myself, Henry Brower. I'm currently the Vice Commodore of the Eastern Yacht Club in Marblehead, Massachusetts. Recently, I was the president of the International J70 Class Association. I grew up in a small sailing club down in Long Island Sound called Cedar Point Yacht Club, sailing only. That's all we did down there. And our family also belongs now to a club up in Northeast Harbor, where Mike Cook, who's one of our panelists tonight, is the current Commodore. And like Corey, I'm a member of New York Yacht Club and also the Storm Trysail Club. So lots of involvement across different sailing organizations. And as the Vice Commodore at Eastern, been very involved in our COVID-19 Action Committee. And some of the things we'll talk about are probably come from that. So without further ado, Mike Cook, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Henry. Yeah, my name is Michael Cook. I live in Annapolis, Maryland, but I'm the Commodore of Northeast Harbor Fleet, which is a small club in Northeast Harbor, Maine. We're a seasonal club where we're only open about 10 weeks out of the year. We have about 400 members, and we have 3 different racing programs with 2 different one design classes and a PHRF class. And then we have a sailing school that brings about 400 kids a summer through the sailing school. So I'm in Annapolis about half the year, and then I'm in Southwest Harbor in about the other half of the year. And Northeast Harbor, for those of you that don't know the area, that's on Mount Desert Island. This is my first year as Commodore. I was Vice Commodore for a number of years, Rear Commodore, and before that, one of the racing class captains.
Mike, thanks for that. And then Jonathan Bartlett from Annapolis Yacht Club. Please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Annapolis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jonathan Bartlett, Commodore of Annapolis Yacht Club. I'm a lifelong Annapolitan. Grew up sailing in Annapolis at Severn Sailing Association, which I think most folks know about. Went through their junior program, taught sailing there for many years. Stayed in Annapolis after school and got into sailmaking. And while doing that, I got involved in a lot of big boat sailing, and Annapolis Yacht Club was a wonderful yacht club to become a member of in town. Did that. I've been there for the last 20 some years. Annapolis Yacht Club 5 years ago actually had a very bad fire. We've had to rebuild the club. At the same time, we went forward on 2 other programs and built up 2 other properties that are adjacent to us. for folks who have seen it in Annapolis, right at the Eastport Bridge. We currently now have 3 buildings with a pool center and fitness center with a small restaurant there, and then another site which hosts our sailing center and all our small keel boats, and then our main clubhouse on the Annapolis side of the bridge, which we rebuilt and opened 2 years ago. So we're a little used to situations not quite like COVID-19, but we've been in crisis management for a little while. So I came on the board in 2016, right after the fire, became Rear Commodore. So it seems as if we've been in rebuilding, building, or now as my first year as Commodore, dealing with COVID. So it's a incredible time. We have, as I said, 1,600 members and over 2,000 total members in the membership there. Junior program has about 550 kids in the summer, and then they run a fall and spring high school sailing program that I believe we have about 6 schools that compete in that. So we're really a year-round club. We have an incredible number of different activities and different committees that we run year-round. So it's a very busy place.
Very good. Jonathan, thanks for that introduction. I think maybe we'll just jump right into some of the key topics that we're all working with. And the first would be maybe if you'd each talk about your waterfront and how you're dealing with making sure it's open. I think in Annapolis, you don't have launch service, I don't think. Everybody's on a dock, is that correct?
That's correct. We don't have
Okay.
a launch service, and we don't have giant tides, and we don't have a lot of boats out on moorings. So most people, keep their boats at docks, and the docks are there. Boats are coming in. The marinas or the boat yards are just starting to put boats in the water. They've relaxed the rules for that to be able to happen. And you can have a one trip to your dock, basically, once your boat goes in the water. You can't be using it, and so the marina or the docks are filling up with members' boats at this point, and some have left their boats in the water all winter. You're allowed to come down to see your boat. You're not going to be working on it per se, but the way Maryland rules have gone, people can go work on your boat, to keep it up, to keep it safe. And, the junior sailing is not, going right now. So the marinas part of it are open, but just to, we're not launching boats at the hoist, but people are there seeing their boats.
Okay. Mike Cook, how about up in Northeast Harbor, which is not a year-round club like Annapolis, but is much more seasonal, open for 10 weeks, sort of kicking off the week before July 4th and running through Labor Day. How are you all looking at the waterfront and getting prepared?
Well, Henry, we're going ahead with putting the docks in. We have 2 different locations. We have the main where the main fleet house is in Gilpatrick Cove, and then we have around the corner in Northeast Harbor, we have a fuel dock, Clifton Dock Corporation, that we also own and operate. And so the docks for the fuel business, they're going in, as well as the floats and docks for the main clubhouse. And they'll be in by the end of May. Our members are aware of the fact that we're moving ahead, putting everything in the water. We also have 110 moorings split between those 2 locations. And those moorings will be serviced and ready to go by the end of May.
Great. Just to give you all an update, Eastern sort of falls in between Annapolis and Northeast Harbor. We're about a 10-month club. So we made the decision at Eastern to also, like Northeast Harbor, move ahead in our normal schedule of getting our floats in. So the 2 main floats are now in and anchored with the gangways up, because the club is closed per the governor's orders, just like in Annapolis, I think, or Maryland. but we want to be ready to get going as soon as we could open things up. So we moved ahead with that. We've been having a lot of discussion. We have a COVID-19 committee. That's the flag officers and the treasurer, secretary, and 3 other members of our finance committee. We meet weekly and discuss all the issues that are coming up, both budgetary as well as operations. And we spent about an hour last night with the chairman of our waterfront committee and chairman of our race committee going over some of their contingency planning. Most importantly, how we might begin launch service for members once the boats start to go in the water, and so that we're ready for that. We too have, we have 2 piers at Eastern. One is the main pier where the typical launch service operates out of. The other is what we call the stone pier, where our 2 hydraulic hoists are located and an all-tide ramp. And the idea is to set up a circular pattern so that we promote social distancing. Think of it not too differently than when you rent a car and you get on the bus at the terminal, they take you to where the car pickup is, you get out, get your car. When you return your car at the end of your travels, you pick up the bus back to the terminal, a different location. So you don't cross the people coming to get cars and you're leaving. So same concept. So folks will get on at the main docks, and then when they're coming back from being on their boats, will be dropped off at the Stone Pier docks so that we're not crossing traffic closely. So that's how we're dealing with our waterfront. And I think we felt it was important for the members, just as Mike just mentioned, to realize that we're full steam ahead and we're hoping to get open, and don't want to waste any precious time in the Northeast with summer by not getting the docks in. And in Marblehead, if you don't stay in line with the fellow that puts the docks in, you go to the end of the line. And that was the last thing we wanted to do. So we felt that it was important to get those in. So, well, gentlemen, thanks. Why don't we move on to instructional programs? My sense is that's a pretty hot topic for a lot of the folks listening tonight, and how we're all dealing with our youth sailing and adult instructional programs. I'll go the other way. Mike Cook, why don't you jump in on that and talk a little bit about what your plans look like right now?
Well, you know, there's so much uncertainty with respect to what we can do this summer. And, you know, we have 3 different scenarios. Business as usual, which might be the case. We have another model that says open but reduced services, reduced participation by members. And then we have the third scenario, which is we can't open. So we're sort of looking at all 3 of those, and we've done financial models around that, and we're also doing all the planning around that as well. And with respect to the sailing school, we are going to open up again. We don't start until July, so we've got a lot of time, you know, before we really open up. But we're sending a notice out to members shortly that the sailing school registration will be open as of May 1st. And we're encouraging families to register their kids. But we're also telling them that if for some reason we can't open, or if we have to open late, or if we have to reduce the programming for whatever reason, that we will refund all of those registration fees for the sailing school kids. That's probably the only accommodation that we've discussed so far. Okay. So Gretchen, we hired a new director of the sailing school last fall. She's communicating with all the instructors. Our letter went out today to all the instructors, telling them, you know, roughly where we are in the planning process, trying to get a sense from the instructors that she's hired, whether any of them are changing plans, whether they're still coming, or whether they decided not to come, if their schedule has changed. So she's still trying to coordinate what her labor pool might look like for the summer. And that letter went out today. You know, we've gotten, you know, for the most part, there's been, you know, I think I've sent 2 or 3 letters to the membership in the last, say, 4 or 5 weeks, just updating the members as far as what our planning has been, what we think our options might be, the 3 options I mentioned earlier. And so far, we're getting mostly positive responses. Members are happy that we are moving forward. And
Good.
and the fact that we have all the gear in the water, the moorings in the water, the docks in the water, the fuel docks open, people are, remaining optimistic.
Good, thanks. Jonathan, how about in Annapolis, where you've got really a year-round program, you've got the high schools involved, you've got a very dynamic junior sailing program that probably starts much earlier than we would here in the Northeast, and how are you all focused dealing with your training programs?
So high school sailing has, we've sadly had to cancel the spring sailing, and it's pretty obvious. The big thing here has been communication, and Bree Grenier, who is our junior committee chair, junior, director, she has been really good with communicating with a number of the parents that we had. I believe we started, I think enrollment started in February. So of course the classes back in February, they fill up so quickly to the members, and then we open it to non-members to work with the community. And so of course the program fills right up. And so there's a tremendous amount, of question right now. And just like Mike up in Maine, we are, we have got 4 different models of what we're going to end up doing here. And it's more of a wait and see with, as the governor goes and makes his decisions on the boating, we're going to go. And we're basically, in my opinion, we're, by May 15th, we will make a call, God-giving, if to make a call on the season. And committee-wise, usually those committees meet every month. Well, they're meeting every 2 weeks, and as you can imagine, the director of the program versus the committee chair, and then the fleet captain of Annapolis Yacht Club, Robert Shapiro, they're talking every day. Again, you can't communicate enough with parents in this. You have to make sure that if we start, July 1st, if we wait to back the program up, that we're able to, we'll be running a smaller program, and chances are that's what we're going to see. But again, we've got to be ready for anything that pops in.
Thank you. A quick overview at Eastern, but in Marblehead, junior sailing is approached a little bit differently, and it may be unique, but maybe they're in the 390 fellow clubs out there tonight. Maybe there's some similar models. Marblehead's home to the oldest junior yacht club in the United States, the Pleon Yacht Club. It's about to celebrate, or it's already celebrated its 100th birthday. And for these number of years, Pleon has really been the focus for junior youth training in the harbor. About 20 years ago, Eastern and the 2 other senior clubs in the harbor, Corinthian Yacht Club and Boston, started their own sort of feeder programs because Pleon was running out of room. So we do run a feeder program. It gets about 30 or 40 kids in it every summer. These are younger kids in opties. And we're moving forward like the other 2 Commodores. The registration request will go out tomorrow in the weekly sailing news blast. And we're moving forward. We hope to get full enrollment. And similar to what you've heard, if we have to cut the program short, we'll be refunding money. Our sailing director, who's also new to us, she's very nimble, and she's got different scenarios where she is a fully trained U.S. sailing instructor trainer. She could teach for smaller groups, and we've got a couple of returning instructors that we can bring on an hourly basis. So again, we're looking at the models as the other 2 Commodores, understanding what the cost structure needs to be, and trying to maintain a fairly flexible personnel pool to handle whatever this pandemic throws at us.
Henry, let me just add one more thing here.
Sure.
It's really really important to talk to the local clubs that are in your harbor. It's not just, it's just not Annapolis Yacht Club in Annapolis. It's Eastport Yacht Club, it's Severance Sailing. And this is the one thing this pandemic has done. It has brought the clubs together. And it's something that, I hope we all are able to do. And I hope we're talking to one another, just like tonight.
Yep.
But it's crucial. And same thing in junior sailing, same thing in, to go carry out, service that's going on, with some of the clubs in town. It's whatever it is. We're sharing information with our sister clubs.
Jonathan, thank you. In Marblehead, our sailing director and the sailing director at Pleon are in constant communication with each other. Just so happens that Pleon has their clubhouse and rents the land from Eastern for $1 a year. So those two organizations have been close for many, many years, although they're separate entities. I think this morning, Ward Blodgett, who's the Commodore of Eastern, was on a Zoom call with the other Commodores in Bartlett Harbor to discuss what's going on and how we're each approaching the current situation. So Jonathan, just as you said, a lot of close communication, a lot of discussion, comparing notes and understanding how we're all going to work together as we move forward in these uncertain times.
Right. And Henry, I'm going to chime in here for just a second. We have, just so you gentlemen know, and Corey too, that we have 660 people out here from clubs all over the country. Prior to the start, we were watching everybody rolling in, and thank you very much for announcing where you are. A lot of the questions are coming in from here, and not only this, but the ones that we received before. What sort of, and I'm just going to pick on Andy Keller right here, what sort of healthcare and public health resources have any of the clubs brought together, or as US Sailing brought together, to form recommendations or form what you're having to do?
For health issues at the club, or directives from the local Board of Health?
Well, I think that's sort of the gambit of all of those things. I think there's one we're sort of dictated, and the other one is how do we respond?
I'll just start off with Eastern, then we'll go to the other two our other Commodores here tonight. At Eastern or to Marblehead, it was very interesting. The Board of Health came out about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, and they closed the causeway down, which runs from the mainland Marblehead out to what we call the Neck, where two of the senior clubs are located, a lot of very nice homes. And it's a lovely across the causeway. A lot of folks walk their dogs, go for bike rides and walk. And it was so crowded going across the causeway on a nice day that there was no way you could maintain proper social distancing. So the Board of Health came in and just closed the causeway down for pedestrian traffic. They also sent out and said that no one was allowed to cross, no contractors could cross town land to affect whatever job they might have. Well, all of the docks in town are stored on town land. And so the clubs right away said, well, wait a second, what's going on? Are you shutting down the contractor who launches all the docks? And the Board of Health came in and cleared that up and said, nope, we're not shutting down Dave Haley. Docks can all go in because those are also the town docks. So that was cleared up. But there is a lot of communication going on, both with the town officials as well as the officials at the various clubs, to make sure that those sorts of things are on track. And everybody's been very accommodating and open to all of that. As far as the club being closed, that's really dictated by the governor. And we're following Charlie Baker, who's our governor, and things are closed, and that's what we're doing. All the parks in Marblehead are closed. All the other public ramps are closed. So Eastern is fully shut down and no one can go on our ramp or use it. And so that's the way all the clubs have reacted to that. Jonathan or Mike want to chip in on that?
I'll chip in on this. So, all of it, AYC is closed to member traffic, all three buildings. At the sailing center, the restrooms are closed. So there's really, the activity there is really none. So really for us, what we're following as you guys are doing up in Massachusetts is the governor's guidelines. And we haven't run across anything with with state health that has crossed us. You know, and you know, we do have you know, our carryout service has started down here in Annapolis. And what we've done there, you know, we have social distancing with the staff. You know, the staff's just as important as any member in the, you know, in any club. So, you know, we're watching out as much for them as anyone.
Well, along those lines, we did start a takeout service at Eastern, available to members only, Wednesdays through Saturday. It's been received incredibly well, and so that's been a real positive. But it's a skeleton staff with the executive chef and a couple of his folks having to practice social distancing in the kitchen. And then, as you may see in other takeout area restaurants, if you order, you go in, there's a bag sitting on a table with your name on it, and you pick it up and you leave. And you've got to wait for the, you know, if someone's in the lobby getting their bag, you got to wait for them to come out before you walk in. So you get to catch up with fellow members in the cars, but that's about as close as we can get.
Hey, Mike, can I just add something here? I'm getting some emails from folks that are listening in, and this just came from Pensacola. I think, you know, everybody's dealing with the environment that they have. So in Pensacola, their clubhouse restaurant is shut down, but their facilities are open. So they're basically, you know, practicing the standard social distancing. No, you know, staying 6 feet apart. And I guess in Florida, you can't gather in groups larger than 10. So I think what we're hearing is that, you know, everybody is following their guidelines and trying to push and take advantage of where they have some room to work. We heard, I think over the weekend, Alamitos Bay Yacht Club was able to open back up again, open their ramps back up. There's no real activity in the clubhouse. So it looks like, you know, when you can provide access, that's sort of the first step that clubs and organizations are taking advantage of and following their, you know, local or regional guidelines for gatherings and social distancing. And I think I don't have the exact details, but Alamitos Bay, at least they're allowing single and double-handed sailing to launch and everybody keeping their distance. So, you know, that person's question, it's basically, you know, what's available in your area, and then applying the general, you know, health guidelines for trying to contain the spread of the virus.
Well, Jack, would it make sense for the Jonathan and Mike to talk a little bit about what the thinking has been so far on the racing programs at their clubs? We talked a lot about, you guys tell us if that's something of interest.
Yeah, no, that was actually a couple of the questions that have come in. You know, first of all, and maybe this is for Jack and Corey, what is the criteria that U.S. Sailing has been going under on, you know, going through on canceling national events, national championships, or postponing them or moving those out? And there was also another question again on the race side of things. Are there already plans that things were going to be, NORs are going to be adjusted, those type of things? And while I'm here, the other big one is the launch service. How is launch service really? You know, those are some major themes over here. And while I'm here, for the people online, we're going to call all these questions together, and we're going to get answers to all of these for you if we don't, in fact, if we're not able to answer these right now. We'll make sure that things get answered.
Well, should we, Jonathan, since your season opens earlier than Marblehead and Northeast Harbor as far as racing goes, why don't you talk a little bit about how you've had to adjust, if you had any major regattas planned, what's happened to those, and you've talked about if the Governor Hogan opens up to recreational boating, what social distancing might mean for your standard, you know, Wednesday night and weekend sort of racing programs.
Well, tonight would be the first Wednesday night in Annapolis, which we are under a postponement currently. It's a beautiful night. It's blowing about 18 out of the northwest, which is the normal first Wednesday night in Annapolis for the season, where the wind blows out of town. So we've had to cancel regattas through the end of May. And postponement for Wednesday nights is where we are. It's not, we haven't canceled it for the season. It is in a postponement. And for a lot of the weekend races, for the smaller club events and for you know, some of the events that, you know, go to destination sailboat races, AKA from Annapolis to Oxford in May, we've had to cancel those for May. So we've had to, but there is a regatta at the end of, this year, it's the middle of May, called the Annapolis Nude Regatta, Sailing World, that we operate with Sailing World. And we have moved that regatta to the last weekend of August. So once again, I stated it was really important earlier to be coordinating with your other clubs, as particularly in the racing side. And our sailing committee and our race chair have been in constant communication with the other yacht clubs right here on in Annapolis and outside of Annapolis on the Chesapeake, to make sure if we do move a regatta, that we're not going to move it on top of someone else's, and if it's okay, you know, just to coordinate this. So this has been, for the last 3 weeks, this has been a tremendous amount of work, and I suspect this has gone this way all across the country with different clubs doing the same thing. But this is crucial to try to keep our sailing calendars organized and able, and our race committees. We have to remember our race committees have to be able to get out there and operate racing. But if social distancing is an issue, we may have to, you know, change the style of racing we're going to do. It may have to be much more fun oriented, possibly, as an example, starting off the docks here at Annapolis Yacht Club and racing out to 2 marks that are preset out in the river and back in and finish. So there's very little race committee activity with, you know, 4 or 5 people in a boat 3 feet apart. And so, you know, we're looking at other ways to operate races, and possibly in this time frame, maybe just making things a little simpler might be a pretty good deal.
That's good to hear. Mike Cook, how about up in Northeast Harbor? Your season doesn't start for another 60 days, but I'm aware you've been having some pretty, you know, in-depth discussions about that racing program.
Well, we have, and as you said, as you mentioned, we don't open for about 9 more weeks. And we don't have many major regatta events that we do during the summer. We just do, you know, summer racing 3 or 4 days a week for that, you know, 2.5 month period of time. So because we have times on our side, we don't open until almost July 1st. I think we open June 27th or June 28th. We've not had to make any decisions yet. Our general manager, Franny Charles, you know, has put together 7 different scenarios, as far as, you know, 6 or 7 different ways that we might have to operate, depending on what the governor allows us to do, and, you know, trying to follow all the protocols and all the recommendations and the safety measures. I mean, Franny's come up with, I think, at least 6 or 7 different possible ways to run launch service, to maybe make some modifications with respect to maybe some single-handed or double-handed sailing, as Jonathan mentioned, sort of make it a little more flexible, a little more fun, a little less serious. And the idea is just to for everybody to realize it's going to be a different summer. Things aren't going to be like we're used to, and to be flexible and just get ready for something different. But we're going to be out there – sailing and racing, hopefully. And I think Franny and and Gretchen and the others who are working on this every day, I think have some good plans in place. But we don't have anything to announce yet to our members because we still have 2 months really before anything even starts happening up there.
Thanks. Let me jump in here and start off with regatta planning and scheduling. Jonathan talked about that, but as I'm still on the board of the International J70 class, we had to make a decision about 2 major international regattas. The Europeans were scheduled in Denmark in early July. The World Championships were scheduled at California Yacht Club in LA for the last week of July. And we chose to postpone both those regattas for 1 year. That was in close consultation with the organizing authorities to make sure that we had dates that would work 12 months from now. So think about what Tokyo did with the Olympics. We followed the same sort of pattern there. And we didn't feel it was appropriate to try to reschedule those major events for later this year. It was too uncertain, too many logistics involved, shipping boats, especially to a world championship, across oceans and across the US continent. We just felt it was more prudent to come back in 12 months. So that's what's happening with those 2 major events. Eastern was going to be the host of the J70 Corinthian Nationals in mid-June. A lot of discussion there with the National Association. That does not come under the auspices of the international class. And that too, we decided to roll that forward for 12 months. And the reason being that we talked about that the organizing committee at the club talked a lot about trying to do it in the fall, but the J70s already have a North American championship planned up in Toronto, and we're hoping to hold on to that. And the class made a decision that we'll make the final go, no go with the North Americans on June 30th. So Eastern will be hosting the Corinthian Nationals for the J70s probably a year from June. We host a nude regatta, much like Annapolis does. I don't think we've approached that yet because it's a end of July timing. So we've got to think about that. Surely social distancing and what sort of parties you might be able to have is on everybody's mind. Wednesday night PHRF racing starts in 2 weeks. That's been postponed. And the 3 clubs have a consortium called the Marblehead Racing Association, where they coordinate the weekend racing and a lot of other events that happen in one design sailing. They're in constant communication. That's run by the race committee's chairman. And they're starting to deal with how we might have a summer program along the lines of what Mike Cook just mentioned, lots of different scenarios. The biggest issue we're going to have is going to be for the fleets that are dry sailed and whether or not we'll be able to use the hoists at the various yacht clubs to launch Rhodes 19s and J70s. For some of the boats that are on moorings, that won't be so much of an issue. So those are some of the things that we're discussing. But the regattas, the big regattas, are already getting postponed, and depending on whether it's a regional, a national, or an international event, it's a much longer lead time. So they're going out further, oftentimes into the next year. So that's what we've experienced.
Team, I'm going to ask a couple of questions from our fellow club members and club leadership out here on the Zoom session right now. Andy G asks, the question is, as long as the social distancing required, how can we possibly initiate big boat racing where it's impossible for a 14 to 12 crew to social distance? That's a big question.
We're not gonna.
You can't do it.
We can't do it. I believe everybody's going to be following, the guidelines set by their state. In Annapolis, what I would love to see, we have a great Harbor 20 fleet, and they're a bunch of husband-wife teams, and there's a possibility the first type of racing we're going to see is that. And then possibly as the social distancing is relaxed and we're allowed, then we can get back to regular style racing.
Another question that came in from Andy, another Andy, was we need to solve the issue of waterfront practices. Need to solve the online meeting structure, dock PPE, sailing with non-family members. Will it require masks? And as the whole immunity thing ends up coming along. I think I lost myself in sort of a question right here, but this seems to be, the general theme that people are asking about over here of, are we going to come up with standards? Are we going to develop those things, from either a U.S. sailing basis or from an individual club basis?
Mike, let me just share one of the things that we're working on, sort of 3 areas within U.S. sailing, in our youth area, our adult department, and within sort of the race management, race administration groups. Those communities are pulling together some task forces to start to look at the information and the data that's coming in, the requirements, the guidelines, and start to apply those to these specific areas to provide some guidance. One of the things that I'm involved with through the U.S. Olympic Committee, the chief medical officer there, Jonathan Finoff, is developing with a bunch of medical experts return to play guidelines, which will provide, what kind of environments are going to be acceptable, what's the social distancing recommendations for different sports. And what we're planning to do, those should be coming to us within the next week. We want to take those and working with these different groups, start to apply them to the environment that we work in. And, my sense is that we can come back with some recommendations, and then I'm going to want to take it back to Dr. Finoff and his medical group and get some feedback on that to see if it makes sense. And then I think what we can then do is take these recommendations, guidelines, suggestions, and make those available to the community. And at least it'll provide sort of a thought process for everybody as they deal with this stuff. But I mean, the things that are being discussed here, hopefully that'll continue on these forums. And there's some common sense. We need to keep distance. How are we going to get on a PHRF boat with 10 people and keep social distancing? It's not going to happen as much as we would like it to. From a recommendation from our standpoint, I don't think that's anything we're going to suggest that can be done. I think the creative ideas that are coming out here of families that can do it, double-handed people that are relatives, that kind of stuff. Those are the things that are going to evolve. But again, we're going to be working to take the information that's available coming from the experts, especially around sport, and mold those to the sailing community and sailing environment. And hopefully it'll give, one more level of information and guidance that'll be helpful. And I think Andy and his thing is, this is a very, as he suggested, is a very contagious disease. So, what are the things from a cleaning standpoint, and, whether you have masks and all these kind of things. I think there'll be some recommendations around that we can put out there.
Mike Waters, I think that in Marblehead, in the J70 fleet, we've been discussing doing double-handed racing with family and maybe not having spinnakers, keeping it very simple. Corinthian Yacht Club, which is at the end of the neck, they have an old starting porch, old school, where before the moorings field encroached out there, they would put a mark out in the beginning of the season, and they'd have a starter, and they would sight the line, and you'd go off and race, and no one worried about whether it was a windward leeward, but they'd pick some government marks and off they went. So we may have to go back to something like that. But again, just having family, whether it's the Rhodes 19 or in your J70 or International One design, husband, wife, mother, daughter, whatever it might be, and you're double handing and no spinnakers. And that's sort of some of the concepts that we're starting to discuss.
That's great. A little bit of commercial right here, guys, because we're actually, we have a few of the people who had started, I think starting to fall off here a little because we are after 6 and we did start a little bit late. Just so the audience knows, we're going to be, US Sailing is going to be putting together, already has a framework and everything like that, is a number of things coming from those groups that Jack just talked about, which is a resource bank for our member clubs. Information is going to be there regarding this, regarding government, USOPC, all of those other types of information is going to be here. But we're also going to segment this down to specific needs. Those needs of the youth community, the youth sailing community, and the waterfront directors. Those for the club members. Any of those other places there's going to be resources available. And we're also creating forums that, just like today, most of the talk in the chat on the YouTube side of things has been conversations between various clubs. This conversation's happening here. There are major conversations that are happening over here, documents being passed by and everything like that. Don't want to get in the way of that, but what we want to do is we want to help facilitate that if that's possible. I think is really a great place where US Sailing can help these member clubs over here. So look for that, and we'll tie it all up here at the end. I am going to pull up one or two more questions right here. They're mainly on starting racing, starting something different as far as racing goes. Is there, sort of a rabbit system, rabbit starts? Are pursuit races going to be coming back? Is that going to be the type of thing that's going to be there? And then I think the last question is, where does the other questions that are coming out from here have less to do with what's happening on the water than what happens before you get to the water and after you get off of the water, and how all of those sort of interactions are going to end up happening.
Mike Cook, you want to jump in and talk a little bit about some of the informal handicap racing that some of the cruising boats or PHRF boats up in Northeast Harbor do on ad hoc basis? Because that's a pretty interesting model that might be able to get formulated a little bit more directly for folks.
Yeah, I mean, for us, if we don't have a race committee for one reason or another, that's not such a big deal for the PHRF group, because for years, a bunch of us, our formal racing is every Sunday, and we have a few two like weekend two-day events. But there's also an informal group of us that on Wednesdays or Thursdays, we go out and do a non-spinnaker or single-handed race, one person, maybe two people on the boat. And it's just organized amongst, 5 or 6 or 7 of us. And we meet at a certain point and pick a course, maybe a 10-mile course, and have a race. We know each other's ratings. We know the distance of the course, and we calculate the results that evening when we get back to our homes. So we've been doing that for years. We'll continue to do that. We've also talked about as I think it was mentioned by someone else on the panel, we've talked about this summer, if we have to, in the International One Design racing group, which is about 23 or 24 boats, maybe there'll be just a two-person, two people on the boat, no spinnakers possibility. We have a looters class of about 20 boats. Potentially that may be how that operates. Yeah, so I mean, we don't know yet. again, because we don't start for another 2 months, we'll just see what happens between now and the end of June. But we're
Jonathan, how
geared
about,
up. I mean, Henry's also the chairman of our race committee at Northeast Harbor Fleet. So he's working with Franny and all of us, all the flag officers, to develop these different possible scenarios. And we'll know more a month from now and 2 months from now. But right now we're just thinking about many different variations of what the summer might look like, but nothing's really yet defined.
Jonathan, how's Wednesday night sailing in Annapolis going to look when you can start to do it? Because that's you get a really big turnout for that every Wednesday, don't you?
So yes, Wednesdays have upwards of 130 boats. You start out in the river and you finish right off the yacht club next to the Spa Creek Bridge. So it's a real social environment. There's party at the club afterwards. That's probably the first thing we're not going to see is a gathering afterwards. We have to have the boating ban, obviously lifted. And we're going to have to follow the guidelines. Once again, these guidelines that each state has set, and as they relax these, I'm not sure they're going to all be the same. And quite frankly, I'm glad Jack said something earlier about U.S. Sailing's guidance in this. This is not, all the other clubs in the country are going to need help in sorting through this, because it would be very easy for us to jump and go way too quickly and then all of a sudden have issues. And so the one thing I'm pretty confident on is we're going to go very slowly as we move forward with this. This is this thing is not to be messed with. We have our fleet surgeon, Pendleton Alexander in Annapolis, has been advising myself and the board on a weekly basis. And, this is for us, we're in the same boat as everybody here. We have to, I'm looking for guidance too, some help.
Great. I'm going to try to wrap this up a little bit right here. First of all, the people who have been very patient on the YouTube version of this and putting things in the chat. Again, it was amazing to watch conversations being had while these conversations were being had over here. So I think we've found a community that we need to continue to support, and certainly that will be something our teams will continue to work on. A couple of the resources, and I touched on them briefly. This is going to be a full organizational toolkit. This will be very easy to find as of Friday morning or maybe tomorrow morning. It'll be right on the homepage. You'll click on this and you'll be able to start seeing population of information for these specific places, the youth, adult, competitive services. You'll see some things from U.S. Sailing and from other national and governing bodies, like what's coming up, as Jack mentioned, from the USOPC. Anything that we're going to end up doing is going to be in here. There's also going to be forums that are going to be available in here for you folks. And people were sending me emails during this with PDFs and content that they're already created. If you send that to me, believe me, we will share it, and we will share it with your fellow clubs, and to the good of the whole organization and to the sailing public. So we're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to that level of input, and that's actually the last bullet that's down here. The live forums for ideas and creating solutions and understanding how we're all going to get through this, because although this group is going to be part of that, the bigger group that's out here, and again, that got up to almost 660 people at one particular time. Your solutions, your answers, your places that are around the country are are going to solve this there, and those things are going to be important to everything else. Other things you're going to see on this place are the pieces that Jack had also talked about before, which was resources that you can put in print to your organizations, into your newsletters. There's content that's there. And again, it's not all about COVID-19 and our issues that are out here. We're putting out some fantastic content that people are very interested in, and we want to make our member clubs successful by being able to share that with their people. We're also going to be putting out places, information from our common partners that are out here. Gowrie, who we all know is, one of the, it's the insurance provider for the yacht club and community, has resources, has the power of the insurance industry in that view, and that will also be part of it. And the other part of the call to action is, I'm requesting that everybody, if you have something you want to share, we have the platforms for something to be shared. And we'd like to hear how things are going. We know that this is going to become other conversations. On May 6th, John Pierce is going to be taking a whole pass of the youth department, and how the youth clubs, or how the camps and the youth sailing is going to be impacted. And he's got a big panel that's put together for that. That'll be on the Starboard Portal on May 6th. And then on May 8th, Matt Hill is going to be talking with some of the all-stars of the race committees. And they are also going to address some of the things that we touched on here today, of how many people on the boat, can we do some different things, government marks, all of those things I think are going to be in play. So we look forward to having, again, this group here and this group over here on the, that's been live with us on YouTube, participating in this, because we're all going to do this and we're all going to be stronger together. Corey, Jack, I don't know if you want to wrap it up a little bit with a thank you. I'd like to thank Henry, Michael, and Jonathan for pulling this together with us. And Corey, Jack.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks to Mike and Brittany for your tech support on this and pulling it all together. And I think, as Mike said, the goal, this was a kickoff and an opportunity for us to begin sharing together and pulling those, best practices together. And I always try and look for silver linings in things. And I think one of the silver linings is when we do get to go sailing again, we'll be doing a lot of sailing just in our own communities, and we won't be able to travel as much. And I think it gives us an opportunity to rebuild sailing within our local areas, and we won't be able to go places, and that will strengthen our local communities. So I think we need to look at that silver lining. Hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. I think, those of us who live in the Northeast are usually pretty content right now, unless we're able to go down south to wait. And now as it gets to be spring, we want to go sailing. And I think the big key here, and what we keep hearing, is a fair bit of patience and just being ready when we can. Jack, do you have any final words?
It was a really good conversation, and we sort of touched on the tip of the iceberg. We look forward to going through those chats, and for everybody that's still listening, you know how to get in touch with me and Mike and John Pierce and Betsy and Matt Hill. Give us the questions, tell us what we can do to help. That's what we have time for, and that's what we're focused on. And I think, just in closing, I'd like to again thank our esteemed Commodores, and let them know, if you guys would like to say a closing word or two to the group and to the audience.
Mike Cook.
No, thanks for having me. we're optimistic and we're also realistic. And we're telling our members that we're hoping for the best, but we're planning for, various contingencies. And that's the best we can do right now. We're different than a lot of these other clubs because our season is so short. And our challenge is really, we've got a 10-week season and half our members are only there for 2 weeks. And so the challenge that we have as a small club is reducing the amount of member attrition based on what's happening this year. So we're really focused on trying to keep our membership together. And it's going well, but it's going to be a little bit difficult for us, I think.
Jonathan, any closing comments, ideas?
Certainly. Thanks everybody for having me on the talk tonight. I'm not sure 6 weeks ago any of us would have thought about Zoom and YouTube and any of these ways to present to the masses. We've all been learning a lot. Every single club that's listening to us, every one of us on this call. It is amazing to get our clubs involved in using these tools right now and learning. I think everybody's had to have a crash course to do it. Regards to sailing, Corey hit it right on the head. We're going to all be staying at home for quite a while here sailing. And what a wonderful time and opportunity for us to regrow the grassroots of sailing. So we've got a chance at this and we can do this. So thanks for having me on tonight.
Yeah, I echo what has just been said by the other Commodores and Corey with sort of restarting the grassroots. I think there's another little piece to this as we've been sort of listening to some of the themes here, which is getting back to family sailing and going out there with whether it's your spouse or your children or in my case, grown children, and getting them back on the boat with each other and just having some family time and maybe lower the competitive things, although my girls are pretty competitive. And my son, who's a golfer, I won't get him on the boat, but he's very competitive. But I just think it's a chance for us to reconnect with family on the water. And a lot of us may have gotten away from that recently, where we get really top-notch crews if we're trying to run a major campaign. And this is going to be a great opportunity to sort of reground our sport back to local sailing, our local yacht clubs, and more importantly, just our families. I think that's going to be really fun to do and a benefit for the sport long term.
Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon, Mike and Jonathan and Henry and Corey. Thank you very much. And for all of you that are listening, I also just want to say in closing, we really, really appreciate the support of our members. Your ongoing support of U.S. Sailing is helping us do these things and keep our programs, shifting our programs. And we're really grateful for all you do for the sport and for U.S. Sailing. So I want to thank you for that. And with that, I think, Mike, are we ready to?
We're ready. Thank you all very much again, and have a nice evening, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.